Routine doesn't feel dangerous while you're inside it, but in the wild, danger can be revealed in seconds, especially when fog erases distance, wind carries scent farther than you expect, and silence hides movement until it's too late. In this documentary, we're examining 6 separate wildlife encounters, each reconstructed from common real-world risk patterns to see how attractants, environment, and timing aligned and what practical lessons could have changed the outcome. The high desert plateau of eastern Wyoming is wide, treeless, and deceptively open until you're down on the service road where sagebrush rises to waist height and the terrain folds into shallow draws. On a February morning, the kind that looks clear but bites hard, wind turbines turn slowly above a frozen gravel grid. At 5:42 a.m., maintenance tech Aaron Klein, 39, rolled his pickup through Gate 3 with a thermos of coffee in the cup holder and a hard hat on the dash. He'd been with the wind farm for 7 years, steady, methodical, known for early starts. In the passenger seat sat Rena Velasquez, 28, a new contractor on her second week, tasked with logging blade ice sensors and photographing nacelle panels after a storm. The temperature hovered around 9 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 13 degrees Celsius. Wind gusts pushed 25 miles per hour, the kind that turns a parked truck into a drum. Their job site was Turbine 14, roughly 1.2 miles down the access road, where drifted snow had packed into ruts like concrete. The visibility wasn't bad in the distance, but down low, blowing powder made the sage line flicker and disappear in pulses. They stopped near a fenced transformer pad and stepped out into the noise. The constant turbine thrum masked everything else. Aaron popped the tailgate and set down a canvas tool bag. Rena unzipped her backpack and pulled out a granola bar, tearing the wrapper with gloved hands. It was the smallest detail, food scent in cold air, that carried farther than either of them realized. A large adult cougar, likely 120 to 150 pounds, 55 to 68 kilograms, moved along a shallow drainage that paralleled the road. Winter pressure drives efficiency. Conserve energy, take low-risk opportunities, investigate easy calories. The cat had followed the service road for miles, using the sage to stay hidden and the turbine noise to cover its approach. Rena was facing the turbine base, camera raised, when Aaron noticed a change that didn't belong. Sage stems vibrating in a tight pattern, as if something heavy was threading through them. He turned, eyes narrowing against blowing snow. The cougar exploded from cover at a distance of maybe 12 yards. It hit fast, low, and silent. Aaron shouted once, more surprise than strategy, and lunged toward Rena. The cat swatted at her backpack strap, a sharp, controlled motion meant to pull her off balance. Rena staggered backward on packed snow, boots sliding. Aaron swung the tool bag like a shield. The cougar recoiled half a step, then circled, shoulders rolling, tail stiff. The turbine hum swallowed their breathing. For 2 long seconds, the animal seemed to measure them. Then the cat surged again. This time, it aimed for the space behind Rena's knees, trying to drop her. Aaron drove forward and slammed the metal end of a torque wrench against the truck bed rail. 1, 2, 3 hard strikes, creating a metallic clang that cut through the wind. Rena, shaking, backed toward the open driver door. Aaron grabbed the thermos from the tailgate and hurled it. It didn't hit, but it broke the cougar's line, forcing a lateral move. In that moment, Rena dove into the cab and slammed the door. Aaron followed, scrabbling for the handle with numb fingers, and got inside as the cougar hit the side panel with a blunt, jarring thud. The cougar paced along the truck's flank, ears forward, then paused at the tailgate where the tool bag sat open and the granola wrapper fluttered near the snow. It sniffed, turned once, and slipped back into the sage line as if it had never been there. Inside the cab, Aaron and Rena sat rigid, breaths shallow. Rena's knee had twisted in the stumble, pain spread up her thigh. Aaron's hand shook so hard he fumbled the radio button twice before getting a call out. Security arrived in 14 minutes, measured later by dispatch logs, lights sweeping the brush line. No one exited the vehicle until a second truck positioned itself for coverage. When wildlife officers inspected the area after sunrise, they found tracks crossing the road, circling the transformer pad, then disappearing into a drainage that led toward broken rock. Investigators concluded the conditions aligned: turbine noise masking approach, blowing snow reducing awareness, and unsecured food scent increasing interest. The wind farm updated policy within a week: no eating outside vehicles at dawn, odor-resistant trash bags in every truck, and a requirement to keep doors unlocked during turbine walks, so retreat is immediate. In noisy, low-visibility work zones, scent control and fast access to shelter matter more than distance. Between stories, the pattern stays the same: a small attractant, a narrow window of visibility, and just enough isolation for response time to stretch. Northern Italy's foothill orchards can look gentle: rows of trees, low stone walls, farm tracks that feel familiar even in winter. But familiarity is exactly what reduces vigilance. When the light fades early and the valley holds cold air like a basin, animals use the edges. At 6:18 p.m. in late November, orchard manager Luca Marinelli, 46, walked the perimeter fence with his dog, a medium-sized mixed breed named Nera. He'd worked this land since his 20s. He knew the routines: check the gate latch, inspect irrigation lines, scan for broken branches after wind. His neighbor's daughter, Sarah Vieri, 17, tagged along to help carry tools and learn the work before the first snow. The temperature was 34 degrees Fahrenheit, 1 degree Celsius. A thin mist settled between trunks, and the orchard's motion lights flickered on and off as moths and fog triggered the sensors. The far end of the property backed into scrub oak and a steep ravine. Good cover, little human traffic. They stopped near a compost corner where fallen apples and trimmings had been piled. It was meant for next-day hauling, but the fruit had fermented slightly, sweet and sharp in the damp. That odor drifted downwind like a beacon. A young male brown bear, smaller than the giants people imagine, perhaps 250 to 300 pounds, 113 to 136 kilograms, had been moving along the ravine searching for late-season calories. Bears don't need to be huge to be dangerous. What matters is proximity, surprise, and the animal's perception of pressure. Nera stiffened first, head low, and gave a short, uncertain bark. Luca's flashlight beam swept the mist and caught nothing but pale trunks and wet grass. Sarah shifted her weight, tool bag strap digging into her shoulder. The bear appeared at the orchard edge as a dark mass stepping through the stone gap. It moved straight toward the compost, not toward them, until Nera barked again and ran 2 steps forward. The bear's head snapped up. It huffed, a forceful exhale that sounded too large for the body it came from. It took 1 step, then another, closing distance, with deliberate certainty. Luca did what many people instinctively do. He raised his arms and shouted. Sarah froze, then copied him, voice cracking as she tried to sound larger. The bear responded by charging 3 paces, enough to test, enough to pin fear in place, then stopping abruptly, front paws planted, shoulders lifted. It wasn't fully committed, but it wanted the space cleared. Luca grabbed a metal rake and slammed it against the stone wall. The clang echoed down the orchard rows. Sarah, remembering a farm safety briefing, backed away without turning her shoulders, pulling Nera's leash tight with one hand. The bear surged again, faster this time, and Luca realized they were too close to the compost corner. Too close to what the bear wanted. He stepped sideways, guiding Sarah toward the nearest shed door, about 40 feet away, light spilling under the frame. Sarah reached the shed first and yanked the door. It stuck, swollen wood in damp air. Luca shoved his shoulder into it, the latch snapping open as the bear hit the orchard grass with a heavy, sliding run. They got inside and slammed the door as the bear's weight bumped the exterior. Tools rattled off hooks. Nera whined, pressed between their legs. The bear circled the shed once, then returned to the compost and fed, jaw working with slow authority. After 7 minutes, estimated later by Luca's phone timestamp sequence, it moved back through the stone gap and vanished into the ravine. No one was physically mauled. But Sarah's hands shook for an hour. Luca noticed later he'd bruised his shoulder forcing the door, and his throat burned from shouting. Wildlife officers who reviewed the scene pointed to an attractant error, compost and fruit left exposed at the boundary, plus a dog's forward movement escalating the bear's sense of threat. The farm updated practice immediately. Compost moved to an enclosed bin 60 yards from the ravine edge, motion lights set to steady mode during peak dusk hours, and dog leashes kept short near boundary gaps. If an animal is approaching an attractant, your goal is to open distance and exit. Forcing a confrontation near food narrows your options. A different landscape, same physics, scent travels, visibility collapses, and the moment becomes a negotiation measured in feet. On the Pacific side of Vancouver Island, the forest meets the ocean in a tangle of cedar, slick rock, and narrow beaches where sound carries strangely. Waves cover footsteps. Wind changes direction without warning. And campsites feel safe right up until they aren't. At 10:11 p.m. in early August, a group of 3 friends settled into a walk-in coastal campsite. Jay Park, 32, a paramedic on vacation. Morgan Lyle, 30, an amateur photographer, and Theo Grant, 35, a teacher who planned the route. They had hiked 4.6 miles, 7.4 kilometers, along wet boardwalk and mud to reach a clearing above the tide line. They were tired, damp, and hungry. The camp kitchen area had a bear cache, but it was a quarter-mile away, and in the dark it felt like extra effort for a short meal. They cooked anyway near their tents. Dehydrated stew, smoked salmon, and hot chocolate. The smell pooled under the trees. When the cooking was done, they sealed what they thought they needed to seal, but they left the pot to soak near the fire ring. A single oversight that, in predator country, becomes a broadcast. A black bear, likely 180 to 220 pounds, 82 to 100 kilograms, approached from the brush line behind the site. It didn't charge. It didn't roar. It walked in with practiced confidence, drawn by the easiest calories in the forest. Human food residue. Morgan spotted it first, dark shape moving where darkness should be still. He whispered, then louder. Bear. As Jay clicked a headlamp beam across the clearing. The bear didn't run. It stepped closer, nose up, locking onto the pot. Theo grabbed a metal mug and banged it against a trekking pole. The sharp sound punched through the waves. Jay rose slowly, making herself tall, voice steady, as if talking down an intoxicated patient. Firm, controlled, not panicked. Morgan backed toward the tent door, fumbling for the bear spray clipped inside his pack. The bear closed to within 15 feet. It swatted the pot once, sending it skidding. That motion, fast, casual, was the moment the campsite stopped feeling like theirs. Theo took 2 steps forward, trying to push it back with noise. The bear reacted by snapping its head toward him and lunging 3 paces. Not a full attack, but enough to pin Theo's feet. Jay shouted sharply and threw a fist-sized rock, not at the bear's face, but toward the ground in front of it to break its advance. The bear paused, then edged sideways, still tracking the pot. Morgan finally got the bear spray out and discharged a short burst into the air to create a drifting cloud between them and the bear. The wind carried it unevenly. The bear flinched, sneezed, and stepped back, irritated rather than terrified. Then it did something worse. It circled behind the fire ring, trying to approach from a different angle. Jay recognized the shift and ordered everyone to the water side. Open space, fewer blind corners. They moved as a unit, headlamps sweeping, voices loud and continuous. Theo kept banging metal, rhythm steady. The bear followed at a distance, then hesitated as the headlamp beams converged and the spray scent grew stronger. After roughly 2 minutes of tense repositioning, the bear turned away and slipped into the brush line, leaving the campsite silent except for surf. No one was mauled, but their sleep never fully returned that night. Theo's hands cramped from gripping the pole. Morgan vomited once from adrenaline and spray blowback. Jay forced them to pack all scented items, every wrapper, every utensil, into the cache despite darkness and fatigue. In the morning, rangers found fresh tracks in the kitchen area and food residue near the fire ring. They documented a classic attractant scenario: cooking odors, unsecured cookware, and late-hour fatigue, reducing compliance with storage rules. The park increased signage near walk-in sites and added a patrol reminder at trailheads. If you're too tired to store it right, you're too tired to be safe. In camps, the after-meal cleanup is the real safety step. Residue is still food to wildlife. The next encounter moves from wild coastline to a place built for control and shows what happens when control has a gap. Behind the public paths of a mid-sized South African wildlife sanctuary, there's a second world: service corridors, lock gates, and concrete holding lanes designed to keep humans and predators separated by layers. The system works until one layer fails. At 7:06 a.m. on a warm October day, 77 degrees Fahrenheit, 25 degrees Celsius. Even in early morning, Keeper Supervisor Nadia Mokoena, 38, entered the service corridor for the lion habitat with junior staffer Peter Roos, 23. Nadia had worked predator care for a decade, disciplined about procedure, known for checklist adherence. Peter was new, eager, and still learning the seriousness of never assume a gate is closed. Their task was routine: shift the lions from the outer yard into the main enclosure so maintenance could repair a damaged shade structure. The lions were familiar individuals, 2 adult females and 1 adult male, around 420 pounds, 190 kilograms, predictable in pattern, not an instinct. The corridor smelled of meat because feeding had been prepped nearby. The air held that metallic, fatty scent that big cats notice instantly. Hannah yanked him upright by the pack strap, and the motion triggered the bear's final surge. The sow charged to within 10 yards, then stopped abruptly and huffed, head swinging between them and the chute behind. The yearling lingered lower, sniffing. Hannah raised her arms and spoke loudly, steady. "Hey, bear! Hey, bear!" Mark did the same, voice shaking. They backed toward the rock outcrop, keeping their fronts facing the animal. The sow advanced again, 3 steps, then another. The terrain compressed everything. There was nowhere to go but up or past. Mark reached for bear spray on his chest strap. His gloves were wet. The safety clip snagged. He fumbled once, twice. Hannah took her pack off one shoulder and swung it outward like a barrier, making her shape wider. She positioned herself slightly ahead of Mark to keep him upright and moving. Mark finally freed the spray and fired a 2-second burst downward, angled to the bear's face as it advanced. The wind carried some away. Enough hit. The sow recoiled, head snapping sideways, then backed, pawing at the snow. They used the moment to gain the outcrop. They didn't celebrate. They didn't shout. They climbed, slow and controlled, until they stood on rock above the chute line. The sow stayed below, agitated, then moved toward the yearling and drifted out of sight along the creek corridor. The entire engagement, first sight to disengagement, lasted about 90 seconds, but it felt much longer. Back at the trailhead hours later, both were checked by medics. Mark's knee was bruised. Hannah's shoulder strained from hauling him upright. Both showed classic adrenaline aftereffects: shaking, nausea, delayed cold. Wildlife officers later emphasized the same triad: narrow terrain, spring hunger, and attractant error. Even a tiny wrapper can be enough when conditions align. Their report recommended stricter zero-drop policy in chutes and to avoid traverses in confined snow corridors during peak afternoon thaw when bears travel creek lines. In tight terrain, your margin is measured in seconds. Avoid attractant mistakes because you may not get a second chance to correct them. One final story returns to a place people assume is safest: close to home, near roads, in daylight, where the boundary between wild and routine is thin. A suburban greenbelt in Colorado runs like a ribbon between neighborhoods: bike paths, cottonwood stands, small ponds that reflect afternoon sun. Families walk there. Runners pass each other without looking up. It feels managed, domesticated, safe. At 4:53 p.m. in September, Maya Hernandez, 41, jogged the paved loop with her 9-year-old son, Eli, riding a small bike beside her. Maya worked as a physical therapist and ran this route 3 times a week. The air was warm, 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Celsius, and the light was golden. They'd brought snacks, apple slices, and jerky in a zip bag. They stopped near a bench by a pond, about 200 yards from the nearest street. Eli sat on the bench and dropped a piece of jerky by accident. It landed in grass and disappeared. Maya didn't think much of it. A young black bear, likely 150 to 200 pounds, 68 to 91 kilograms, had been using the greenbelt as a travel corridor. Late summer bears often move closer to human zones, garbage, fruit trees, grills. The bear caught the scent, followed it, and emerged from the cottonwoods on the far side of the pond. At first, it looked like a dog. Then Maya saw the shoulder hump, the rolling gait, the head shape. The bear walked toward the bench with direct focus, not charging, approaching. Maya's first move was correct. She pulled Eli off the bench and put herself between him and the bear. Her second move was equally important. She didn't run. Running triggers chase instincts and risks a fall. She spoke loudly. "Hey, go on!" and waved her arms wide. Eli froze, eyes locked. Maya grabbed his bike handle and angled them toward a nearby park restroom building about 80 feet away. Solid walls, a door. The bear continued forward, closing to about 30 feet. Its nose dipped to the grass where the jerky fell. It sniffed, then lifted its head and took 2 more steps, testing whether the humans would yield. Maya reached into her running belt for a small personal alarm and triggered it. The siren squealed, a high, sharp sound that cut through the park's normal calm. A couple walking dogs turned, startled. The bear flinched, but it didn't flee. It stood on all fours, head low, deciding. Maya kept backing, shoulders square, eyes on the bear's chest rather than its face. She guided Eli toward the restroom door, which had a heavy spring hinge. It was locked, closed for cleaning. For a half-second, Maya felt the trap, a solid shelter that wasn't available. Then she saw an open maintenance gate to a fenced utility yard beside the restroom. Not perfect, but a barrier. She pushed Eli through first, then stepped in and pulled the gate shut, latching it. The bear reached the grass where the jerky piece had been and found it. It ate in one bite, then paced toward the fence line, sniffing where they'd gone. It rose briefly, paws on the chain link, testing height. The fence held. A city worker in a reflective vest approached from the path with a radio already in hand, keeping distance, using calm, practiced motion. 2 minutes later, animal control arrived in a truck, lights flashing softly, not to startle, but to clear the area. They used loud commands and vehicle presence to push the bear back toward the cottonwoods. No one was injured. But Eli cried afterward, not from pain, but from the delayed realization of how close it was. Maya's legs felt weak, her mouth went dry. They sat in the utility yard until the bear was out of sight, and the workers confirmed it had moved on. Officials later stated the bear's behavior was food-conditioned, used to finding snacks in human corridors. They recommended tighter trash management along greenbelts, public reminders about dropped food, and immediate reporting when bears linger near benches and playgrounds. The city installed additional sealed bins and posted seasonal signage during peak bear movement months. Even in suburban corridors, dropped food can turn a calm approach into a close-range problem. Barriers and calm retreat beat speed. 6 different places, 6 different species pressures. But the same architecture of risk. Each incident was shaped by a preventable overlap. An attractant, food scent, residue, garbage, meat prep, paired with an environmental condition like fog, noise masking, confined terrain, or dense cover, and then a timing window where help was minutes away or the human response was delayed by surprise. The lesson isn't that the wild is out to get you. It's that wild animals are optimized for quick decisions, and humans often move as if nothing can happen until it does. When conditions align, the difference between a close call and a fatal outcome can be a door left open, a wrapper dropped, a gate not physically tested, or a moment of panic that turns retreat into pursuit. Reduce scent. Increase awareness. Keep a clear exit. And when visibility collapses, fog, darkness, noise, treat every routine action like it has consequences, because sometimes it does.